Hey guys, another video for our Pilots in Japan playlist, as well as getting questions from people about getting private pilot licenses in Japan or converting to Japanese private pilot licenses. We also get questions from people who aspire to fly professionally in Japan. So usually people that have a desire to live in Japan and also have a desire to fly for a living. So they want to know how to go about doing that, and we get inquiries from various people at different levels of experience and qualification. So to start at the beginning, probably as far as training, we do get people say, I have a PPL and I want to train, get a CPL or ATPL, and you know, how would I go about doing that in Japan? As far as any sort of training at all in Japan, it's probably the most expensive country in the world for flight training. So, you know, that's one issue, and then the other issue is the language, of course, because most of the training and that sort of thing that goes on in Japan is in Japanese, of course. So there are exceptions. Those of you who haven't seen it, if you're a pilot and you're interested in this, on the Pilots in Japan playlist, on our Pilots in Japan playlist, we have a series of videos about how to go about converting to a Japanese license through another license, and talks about radio and all sorts of other things as well. So that's all sort of being covered, the law exam and everything else. So there's all that. So as far as training, coming to Japan with a private pilot license and training to a commercial level or ATPL level, it would be a crazy thing to do. You'd have to overcome all the language hurdles, and then the cost would be huge, absolutely huge. The flight time costs 3 or 4 or 5 times more than it does in other countries. That's why usually Japanese pilots do a lot of their theory training in Japan, and then they'll go and do their flight training in the USA or Australia or China or just about anywhere else, because Japan's so expensive. So just roughly $700-800 an hour for a 172 with an instructor. So just insane. So that's not really a viable option. So finish your training somewhere else, and then as far as actually getting a job here, probably the least experienced and the least qualified you are, the more difficult it would be, which some of you would probably say it's the same in every country. However, it's even more so in Japan, because there's a couple of complications. One is, as with any job in Japan, if a Japanese person can do it competently, they won't employ a foreigner to do it. So the immigration department won't give you a visa to do something that a Japanese person can do, and Japanese companies won't employ a foreigner to do something that a Japanese person can do. They'd prefer, the truth is, as harsh as this sounds, the truth is that they'd prefer to have Japanese staff, because they know it's just much easier to have Japanese staff that can, you know, do everything the Japanese way and whose Japanese level is native, and it's just much easier for a company, of course, for a Japanese company to employ a Japanese person than it is to employ a foreigner. So you've got that added to the fact that a lot of the jobs that we can do, you know, as a low-level CPL pilot in Australia or the USA or a lot of other countries, there's always those sort of simple jobs that you can get, you know, doing parachute drops, or you know, aerial photography, or you know, there's all those sort of simple jobs that low-time CPL pilots can get in other countries like that. Whereas in Japan, the amount of that work is a little bit more limited, and the number of people that are qualified to do it is much higher. So the chances of a foreigner coming to Japan and doing a job like that is virtually zero. Virtually zero. I mean, Naka Nihon is Japan's biggest privately owned airline or aviation company, and they don't employ any foreigners full-time at all. So, you know, so the lower time hours, the lower experience you have, the less experience you have, and the less qualifications you have, the less likely it will be for you to get a job here. The next hurdle is that to fly any JA Japan registered aircraft, so to fly any Japanese registered aircraft, so Juliet Alpha is Japanese registered aircraft, you need a Japanese license. So you must have a Japanese license to fly a JA aircraft. And usually most of the job descriptions say that you need to have the JCAB Japanese license first. So they'll have, okay, you've got to have CPL or ATPL, and then you have to have this number of hours and all those things, and then you must have a JCAB license, plus a radio operator's license, usually. So there's that. So as far as that, there's all the usual websites that pilots use to get jobs around the world. So if you just search pilot jobs Japan, you'll get all those websites will come up with the jobs that are going. Usually it'll be companies like Jetstar Japan, and Jetstar Japan, of course Jetstar's an Australian company owned by Qantas, but Jetstar Japan is actually independent, and they've got JA aircraft, so you've got to have Japanese license for that. Japanese license is not the biggest hurdle, as we've shown you already on the previous videos. Converting to a Japanese license is not a huge thing. The radio is a bigger one. That's a bigger one. If they expect you to have that yourself first, that's a bigger one, as we've already showed you on previous videos. The chances that they're going to employ you first and then help you convert to a JCAB license are pretty low if your experience and qualifications are low. So if you're a 10,000 hour pilot, you know, with 5,000 hours on type, and you know, for Airbus or something, and you know, you're really highly qualified and highly experienced, and you're 50 years old or 45 years old or something, they might help you. But you'll see yourself if you look on those websites with the jobs, with the jobs going there for ATPL, and usually it's Jetstar and JDA. For FDA, the Fuji Dream Airlines is probably one of the bigger domestic carriers in Japan, and they're almost always Japanese pilots. I did actually hear on the radio once an Australian pilot flying an FDA aircraft, Fuji Dream Airlines aircraft. They do exist, but again, you know, why would they employ a foreigner when they can employ Japanese guys to do it? So yeah, the advice would be, if this is really what you want to do, would be to continue flying in whatever country you're already in, and then just watch the job ads and apply. To come here, to come here first and expect to, you know, convert to a JCAB license and then get a job, your chances are pretty low. They're really low. And if you're thinking come here as a low-time pilot and get a job, your chances are probably zero. Sorry, but it's best that we're honest about these things. And you know, a low time ATPL pilot, you know, even if you came here and got your JCAB license, your chances of getting a job would still be low. So really, the only chance you've really got is if you're a high time, so you've got lots of hours, you've got lots of experience, you've got lots of qualifications, then you'd have a chance, you know. But if that's not the case, then you know, it's a pipe dream, really. The chances of getting a job like you can in Australia or America, where you can just get a job, you know, flying a milk run, flying a simple route somewhere, or doing something else is pretty remote. The other thing that's possible, and again, it's really only going to work if you're a high-time pilot, really, would be to get a job working for something like Jetstar Australia, where they have flights that are going between Australia and Japan constantly, and then maybe live in Japan and go backwards and forwards internationally on your flights. You could possibly do something like that. There's a lot of companies that fly in out of Japan, you know. So really, the best thing to do would be just stay wherever you are, get a job wherever you are, and keep plugging away at your hours and experience and qualifications, ratings and endorsements and things, and then just keep following the job ads on the internet. Really, there's no real benefit to being here. Being here won't increase your chances of getting a job, really. Just got to keep applying. But I think most of you will see, if you get onto the job sites and look at what jobs are actually available and what are the requirements of those jobs. And they won't cut. There was a guy saying recently that, oh, you know, I'm going to try and get in with less hours or something. They won't. You know, whatever the requirements are on the job ad, that's their requirements. And the chances of getting in with less than what they're asking for, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's not necessarily what people want to hear. This is why we made this video. Another guy asked this week about it. He's actually quite a high-time pilot. He also is going to get into rotor wing, so he's getting into helicopters, which is probably not a bad idea because there's a demand for that here. But again, those jobs usually get filled by Japanese guys because, you know, they've got their JSDF, they've got their self-defense force. So, you know, that's a common route that guys take. They go and join the Japan Self-Defense Force and fly helicopters or jets or whatever, fly something for 10, 15 years and then retire, and then they can get these other jobs then, flying helicopters and fixed wing and things like that. So, you know, there's a reason that foreign pilots are rare in Japan as employees, you know, working for Japanese companies. There's a reason that they're rare, you know, and these are the reasons. These are the reasons. They'd prefer to employ Japanese people, and, you know, the Japanese government would prefer them to employ Japanese people, and, you know, it's just easier for them. It's easier for them, so it's just the way it is. So unless you've got some amazing experience and some amazing qualifications and some amazing skills that they really, really need, you know, they're not going to be really interested in you, unfortunately. So there it is. Sorry it's not all good news, but it's just, we've got to be realistic about it, haven't we? So that's all you can do, really. Stay where you are, keep doing what you're doing, build up your ratings and your experience and your qualifications, and just keep an eye on the jobs, keep applying for jobs, and see if you're qualified for one first, and if you can hook one of them. It's about the best you can do. And then just look at the other airlines that are in and out of here, because of course you only need to have the Japanese license if you're flying a Japanese registered aircraft. So if you get a job for Jetstar Australia as opposed to Jetstar Japan, or Qantas, or China Air, or another company from another country, then you won't have that requirement. So there it is. More videos coming soon.